few new faces. We've got Hannah, welcome, representing Hastings District Council. And the first time I met Hannah, she was part of the public in a meeting in Tiawonga, and she was shouting on the top of her voice to me, and I hadn't even opened my mouth yet. And then I opened my mouth and said what I thought, and I got 1,000 apologies. So I really, that's the strength of a person, you know, to apologise for when they do something wrong. And she hasn't shouted at me since, and she won't again, will she?
No, but I was right.
Oh, here we go. That's all good. I just agreed with you. No, that's all good.
Thank you.
So we've got...
Malcolm's coming, but he'll be late.
He'll be
Dixon,
late.
yeah.
Do you know how long that
Maybe
will be?
half an hour.
Okay. Similar with Charles Lambert, who comes from Wairua. A lot of road works, so we can imagine that would delay him at times that he has got no control over. And we also got an apology from Tanya Hobman. And we've got Nigel, who's on holiday or at work in Australia. G'day. Put up your big hand rather than the little yellow hand when you have a question, so we know. Because I obviously won't see, but your colleagues on those sitting there strategically will alert me. Or not, if they don't want you to ask any questions. We know what it's all about. Okay, we would like to welcome you all. An important meeting for us as a joint committee. I've only been part of this journey the last 5 years, and we'll talk about that a little bit more in item 4. How important is this and what we're here mainly about to do today. So I would like to ask ex-councillor Redstone, for the karakia. It's unusual to have somebody from public to do it, but I'm the chair and I can make that ruling, so there we go.
Te horo, te moreno, kia whakapapa, o nāmu te moana, hei rahi mā tātou I te rangi nei, aroha atu, aroha mai, tātou I a tātou katoa, hui e tai ki e. May peace be widespread, may the sea be like greenstone. A pathway for us all on this day. Let us show respect for each other, for one another, bind us all together. That was really appropriate.
Great. Thank you very much for doing that. And you'll be here the duration, so you all can close with the karakia?
Right.
Thank you. That's great. Okay, then we've got housekeeping, and I'll read that. This meeting is being live streamed on Council's Facebook page and recorded for viewing at a later date on our YouTube channel. So anyone who really wants to do a bit of nitpicking, go back to the YouTube channel. In an earthquake, drop, cover and hold. The shaking is long or strong. When the shaking subsides, leave the building through the nearest exit. Follow Simon, that's normally what we do. And towards Napier Hill, and mainly Simon because he's got the longest leg, so he'll be at the front. Towards Napier Hill along Dalton Street to Tiffin Park, continuing up the steps to Cameron Road. Evacuation. If an emergency alarm sounds, immediately evacuate the building through the nearest exit, that's there or there, and proceed to the assembly area, and that's on the grassy verge in front of the building there by the trees. Emergency exits are clearly signposted, and I have to point these out now, apparently that's what the form says. Toilets are located down the hallway outside the chamber entrance. Have I done all right? Okay, fantastic, really good. Thank you very much. Okay. We've done apologies, and we can I have a mover that we accept those apologies? And a seconder, we've got that as well. Those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Confirmation of the minutes. There is no conflict of interest declaration, I understand. We haven't had one since I've been a chair, but no? Okay. Confirmation of the minutes of the Clifton to Tangoio Coastal Hazard Strategy Joint Committee meeting held on the 5th of July 2024. No doubt you've read them all. I've read them because I wasn't there. And thank you very much for Councillor Haley Brown, who's the deputy, to actually lead that so well. Maybe you got yourself a job going forward. Who knows? Are there any alterations that we need to make to that? None. Nigel has got none either. Can I have a mover to accept those? Second, all in favour, say aye.
Aye.
Against? Ayes have it. Okay, then we go to,
Chair, just while we're on those minutes, that meeting on the 4th of July at Marahiwi Marae was postponed.
okay,
That was so that a public meeting could be held to talk about the recent storm along the coast.
okay,
That public meeting has been held now,
okay.
so just for everyone's knowledge, that Marahiwi meeting should be rescheduled as soon as possible.
Okay, okay. But the community meeting has been held?
Yes.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Through the chair, I wonder if Noel would like to speak to that, because we do have a new date.
Yeah, the new Marahiwi Marae meeting will be held on the 10th of September at 6 o'clock with the tag team and whoever, and the Marae people that come along.
Okay. Thank you. Then we go to item 4, which is, and the subject is Clifton to Tangoio Coastal Hazard Strategy Recommendation to Hawke's Bay Regional Council. So this is a major decision item for today, the only decision item for today. The rest is for information. And it's been a long journey. As I said before, I've only been involved 5 years. But this was started very ably by Councillor Peter Bevan, who was very much involved in developing those early years. And when you look at photos of the community panels, he was right centre and front of that development, which was really great. But there have been other people who have actually been very instrumental in this. I would like to point out that Chris Dolly, asset manager, has always been very supportive with the staff and making time available. Most of the community meetings, all the community meetings that I went to, Chris was there as well. So it's not just office work, but it's actually out of time as well. Of course, we've been ably led by Simon Bendel, and always enjoyed your calm and collective persona in all of this, and the wisdom that came forth from that as well. I understand, and no doubt you guys will talk a little bit more about the history as well. There's also another person, and she just happens to be here, and also you've been a real stalwart in developing the strategy and making sure it continued to get oxygen from the community, inform the community about this, and no doubt the community panels, especially in the southern cell, was well represented due to your involvement in all of this. So once again, thank you very much for that. So there's much more I can say about this. We also have other staff, the technical advisory group, who do virtually all the work around this, and they've been very supportive and informative. And our meeting schedule actually became closer because we felt it needed some urgency, and TAG fronted up and did a lot of additional work, which is often over and above the work that they do within the councils themselves. So won't name any names because I won't remember them all. But I will now ask and pass on to the good gentleman on my left to give an intro into this item.
Thanks, Chair. So I thought I'd just make a few comments and then pass to Simon just to take us through, I guess, a bit of the 10-year history and some of the key points. I think it's the right time to reflect on how we got here, rather than just jump into the detail of this very important report. But it is the culmination of 10 years of hard work for many people. Some have left council or other organisations, and some are still here. So just want to recognise all the hard effort that has gone in. I think it also speaks very much to collaboration. It's been a fantastic collaboration across our PSGEs and our councils, and in particular the technical advisory group is staff from multiple councils working together on the same topics for the benefit of the community at the end of the day. So I think that speaks volumes to how we've all worked together. So I think it is quite a momentous occasion. It's the culmination of 10 years' work to really hand the baton over to the Hawke's Bay Regional Council to take this work forward. And we do know that there's a public consultation nominally scheduled for March of next year. So that will be another sort of key date going forward for the Regional Council. But certainly for this joint committee, a very important occasion to potentially hand the baton over, depending on how the rest of the item goes. And I know the regional council's very much looking forward to receiving that baton and taking the work forward. So with that, Simon has been the project manager for this project for its entirety, as I understand, and it's been really great as people come and go, that we've had some consistency of approach. It is very much work that has been leading the nation, and we've had a lot of people looking and observing and commenting on how the work has gone, and I think it's a testament to everyone involved, the recognition at the national level. So with that, thank you, Simon, very much for, a decade of hard graft in a very difficult subject matter. You certainly have been instrumental in getting to this point. And I'll just pass it over to you to reflect on some of the key challenges and a little bit of the history, and then we can get into the paper chair.
Thank you, Chris. Thanks all. We did think it worthwhile capturing some of those key historical sort of stories about this work that has been going for quite some time, as we keep pointing out. I've had 3 kids since I started this work, so it's been a journey in more ways than one. In fact, looking back through my notes, my first...
Maybe number 4.
Number 4, maybe. My first meeting with this committee was in September 2014, so it does go back quite a long way. Back then, we thought this might take 2 years to get to a strategy. Obviously, it's taken a lot longer than that. And looking back through our notes, roughly half of that time, the last 10 years, has been with the community in collaboration, and roughly half, since late 2018, has been really internally focused on figuring out how the council can deliver on this significant body of work. So interesting reflection that so much work has been internally focused as much as externally focused. So running back through some key sort of trigger points, Professor Komar and his colleague wrote a report back in 2014 which provided a key trigger for this work and really highlighted some of the challenges this coastline faces over the next 100+ years. And that prompted the thought that rather than take this piecemeal sort of hotspot by hotspot approach, the council should come together and collaborate on a long-term solution with the PSG partners. And that prompted this work to kick off in earnest. Around the same time, I recall a report from the Parliamentary Commission for the Environment saying, yes, these are big challenges, but they are slow moving. So do take your time, take the community with you on the journey. And so it was almost a deliberate pacing back then to make sure that as we worked through what those hazards were, what the risks were, we didn't rush that with our communities. And we also didn't lead with a regulatory response. It's important that we led with information and discussion and didn't come with regulation first. And I think we learned from other projects. I'm thinking about Kapiti Coast, for example, where a district plan style approach resulted in essentially high court proceedings ultimately. That was not the approach we can take here, a much more collaborative and community up process. Another key change happened sort of partway through our project with new guidance from government in 2017, and that brought into place this new dynamic adaptive pathways approach, which hadn't been tested yet in New Zealand in a coastal context. And that was really helpful in a whole lot of ways. It changed the conversation from let's tackle the most urgent issue first to, well, what happens after that? What's the long-term journey for this whole of coast approach? So really useful, but also really challenging. I made a comment in here, we're designing the plan as we flew it. And to an extent, I think we still are doing that. Look, I have gone through lots of other history in here, which I won't go through laboriously, other than to say that today I think is quite pivotal. I've made the point here that if this discussion goes through and resolution is passed, this could be the last meeting of this joint committee. HBRC may look for more feedback as it looks to consult perhaps early next year on this work. But if it all goes through as planned, this may be the last meeting of the committee in this format. So look, from me to all of you, thank you. I'll look forward to any questions you may have, but I'll pass back to you, Chair, at this point.
Okay, excellent. Thank you very much. And one extra point I would like to make is that in all the joint committees that we have, this is a joint committee with the most in the public gallery. So that really proves that our community has got a big interest in this. And whenever we had certain milestones to reach, generally the gallery was full or almost full. And we don't see that with any other joint committees. So I think that's important for us, especially as councillors on HBRC, to take forward as well into the discussions when we go and take it to HBRC, that they understand as well that this actually is really a community interest project, strategy, and that we need to continue to be in contact with the community going forward, even if we have to make changes. So on that basis, are there any questions regarding the strategy, the documents that we have seen, any changes that we may have made? We've all got it. It's good reading. Also, as a reminder, when you read this document, yes, it is written so that the community can understand it and can take it away, but primarily it is for staff who actually now have to enforce this in time to come. So it's not only just pictures and nice fluffy words, it's also an instruction for staff going forward as well, so keep that in mind.
There's a question on the screen, Chair.
Okay, Nigel.
Yeah, through you, Chair, not so much a question, but more a statement of thanks to Simon. I found the document both easy to read and very understandable, and I think that's an art in itself to prepare a document that hasn't only had the involvement of the public, but the public will be able to understand it when it's fully published. And I think that's a real achievement on your behalf, Simon, so thank you very much.
Thank you. Well, if there's no further discussion, not that I want to stifle it.
A question, and I'm looking to you, Chair, to see if this is the right paper to bring it up on, is the sort of what happens if we do adopt this, like things like the advisory committee, the shapes and that. Just, I suppose, talking to the point that you made around this could be our last meeting. Would you like those questions now in that discussion now or after this paper?
I think we should have that now because it's pertinent to where the strategy will go and what it will do. So, any of you guys, I can answer it if you want me to. Go. Chris says, have a go. See if you can fail. So when we had QC Asher give us the report, his advice after talking to all the councils and all the members of the committee, but also some of the community, it was felt that, according to him, that still Napier and Hastings District Council should have an input, so that HBRC staff can continue to test certain ideas, because this is not a strategy in concrete. We will impact communities, and those communities are represented by Hastings District Council and Napier City Council, and also some of the work that they do as well. So his advice was to actually have an advisory committee, mainly so that we can keep that communication open. And it won't have, of course, the same role as what we've got here, but personally, I think it has benefit. And if it has no benefit and we find that out, I know we're all busy and we're all on committees, and we all spend a lot of time in community, preferably, rather than debating here in chambers or in your own chambers. So let's see how this goes, I would say. If it would be not beneficial, or it's wasting people's time, no doubt the question will be raised, and then we can still look at it. So, does that answer your question? Just about the advisory committee?
Yeah. I suppose just for discussion, I feel like we have moved on a little bit since that report came out as well. I think, and not wanting to speak for other people, but in some conversations I've had with other Napier City councillors, there's I think there was a fear about losing control and input into this activity, whereas I think we've moved on a bit in our thinking, and to now we are handing the baton. It's HBRC's role. This will become BAU for them. So I suppose throwing out the idea that rather than it being something where we feel like setting it up because we still want to have an input, maybe it's more how can we be of help to HBRC? So what would be beneficial to HBRC?
And that could well be the advisory committee do that, you know. So it actually depends on what the objectives were. We haven't got terms of reference for it anyway, written up. So we actually don't know quite its objectives and its vision of that particular committee. So that will still be, and that will come then clear once it's being developed, what really the outcome of that committee will be and and the effectiveness of it. So we'll see. At this stage, we're proposing, unless this joint committee says no need for it, it may still be that HBRC, as councillors, we may wish to actually proceed with it, just to make sure that we actually have transparency in the decision making as well. Zan?
Kia ora, Chair. Look, I'm just searching for where would be the best time or item today to have a brief conversation about the sand renourishment and consenting for that for West Shore.
Okay.
Just think that we ought to air those issues, and I'm interested in whether the community and different points of view can be brought in through that process and into the dialogue that will have to go on with Mana Aruru.
Okay. I think it may be good in the current coastal projects. That's where we'll discuss it, I think. It's more in line with that. Nigel has got his hand up.
Yeah, through you, Chair. It was a similar question, but I had it down as a note against item 6, where we're sure it's specifically mentioned. That's where I was going to raise the same matter.
Okay. Okay. Good. Excellent.
But through you, Mr. Chair, following up on Hayley's comment, and I understand the direction of where this committee will evolve into an advisory committee. And I think that is an essential element that should be approved and go forward. My question was more about the role of TAG going forward.
I'll pass that on to Chris.
So I think there's still a little bit of design work to do, but if there is an advisory committee, they would need to be supported with some technical advice. So I think TAG notionally has a future, and it's been really valuable to work across council. So I think probably can't give a definitive answer today, and I think part of transitioning to the next step is just thinking through how it will precisely work. But definitely an advisory group will require technical support, and so it could be a slightly different or slimmed down TAG type of arrangement, but I certainly think it's still a component to go forward.
Good.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Chair. Just a question procedurally. If this is essentially going to be our last meeting, do we need just got the word, a motion or something in the thing that directs the establishment of it, or is that something that will come from
No,
HBRC?
that's part of the direction of the report that we're given by Mr. Asher.
Brilliant, thanks.
And through the chair, the memorandum of transition that's been signed provides for that directly. So
Okay.
just through usual process of setting up a new joint committee, right?
Brilliant, thank you.
Sorry, so the advisory committee would be a lot smaller committee, wouldn't it? It's not the whole works going across.
So through the chair, we do have a draft terms of reference for it, and the idea was to have, I think it was 2 members from each, so 2 from each of the PSGEs and 2 from each council.
Okay. Thank you.
So it's not too onerous, not too heavy.
But I think words are important, and I look at the vision in this strategy, and I read the vision that coastal communities, businesses and critical infrastructure from Tangoio to Clifton are resilient to the effects of coastal hazards. I just wonder what the community will think resilient means. Does it mean bulletproof and nothing will affect the community? Does it mean if we get knocked down, we'll get up again and restore ourselves? Or does it mean that the strategy is adapting to the effects of coastal hazards?
Who would like to have a go? I've got an idea.
I'll back you up.
Okay, then. So, words are important. So when we're talking flood protection, protection means you're protected from. Flood resilience means we work a process that not necessarily will protect you from that hazard, but at least we work in a way that will minimise the effect of that particular event. Simon.
Thank you, Chair. I think there's a fair point raised here about expectations. So I think that's fair to raise, and that resilient is a term that could have different meanings. To me, resilience is an outcome, but as you say, it's not a complete protection, but others could interpret that in different ways. This vision was actually originally prepared by this joint committee way back in the day, sort of endorsed by the panel, but has been looked at for many years now. So I think if there's a desire to make it clearer and less open to interpretation, there's a chance to do that today. That's achievable. With alternative words, it could be more clear. So there's an option to make some changes if you wish. And I think there's a point to make that resilient could be interpreted in different ways.
Yeah, and I think it's worth pointing out that because some of the options are for engineering interventions to provide that short that first 20-year tranche. All of those interventions will have limits to the level of protection they provide, and I think one of our key learnings from Cyclone Gabriel is the importance of keeping communities informed of those residual risks. So I think that's, certainly can be applied to the coast and the coastal hazards as well, and that any intervention doesn't provide absolute protection. And then how do we manage those residual risks is part of that resilience question. And of course, we know that some of these pathways ultimately lead into potentially a retreat situation. So again, that is part of the resilience discussion. And I think it's quite upfront in the strategy that in some locations that may need to occur down the track, although it be sort of 50 years plus down the track. So, yeah, that would be my comment.
Nigel.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Chair. I think following on from Simon's comments, there's an opportunity that still exists in the strategy, because I notice on page 53 or whatever it is, the glossary of abbreviations and terms is yet to be completed. So perhaps it is an opportunity to add resilience with a definition as far as this work's concerned. But my agreement with Simon is resilience is part of the 5 R's of disaster management, starting from the reduction to the readiness, the response, the recovery and the retribution. So I think there is an opportunity to word something around the lines of resilience being the process to minimise and maximise the risks and opportunities of coastal hazards.
Thank you for that. That's a good suggestion. Would you like to take this somewhat further? At the last, it's almost like at 11th hour, we're going to do some wordsmithing. Is that your...
Well, I don't want to delay things. I don't want to go around in circles, but I just raise it.
Yeah.
Because my immediate thought about resilience was bulletproof. Yeah. And I don't think that's what this is talking about.
So if we make an action point that we actually, in the glossary, we actually define that term resilient.
Yeah, through the chair, I think that's a useful suggestion that the glossary could add resilience, but to make it really clear, we could also, underneath the vision on that page 6, we could go in, for the avoidance of doubt, resilience means.
Yeah.
Right up front. And we could use a commonly agreed definition of that term. It'd be a simple change to make between now and presenting it to HBRC.
Yeah, I just wondered whether, instead of having critical infrastructure from Tangoio to Clifton are resilient, whether we just put adapt to the effects of climate, coastal hazards there. Just change the word from resilience to adapt.
How's it looking, Wordsmith?
On the fly drafting. Yeah, well, so I think it comes down to personal preference and how these things are interpreted. My own personal view about that would be that I think resilience is an aim we should strive for, but the term needs to be more clearly defined so it's not misunderstood as a bulletproof protective outcome. So my personal preference and suggestion would be to define the term rather than change the vision itself.
Okay, I'm happy with that.
Good, thank you. Any other comments regarding this or any further? Words are always important, as you say, you know, in the way.
Especially in 5-10 years' time, they'll be even more important.
That's right.
Oh, so
I've
through the
decided to actually go everybody by the first name because Hannah has got such a difficult surname that I need to be consistent, so we now go only first names, okay?
Through the chair, I was just going to say, I think adapt, to me, if you have adapted, then you are resilient to it. So I don't know, I can see where Owen's going with this, but I suppose it depends on how it was formed. And if this was something that came from our community panels, then it becomes quite procedurally quite difficult to change it at this time.
So,
You were there.
oh, yeah, through the chair, but Mark Clues, I'm not sure if he's here today, actually corrected me.
He's
Oh,
there.
he is. I thought it was a panel, but actually Mark's memory is better than mine. The joint committee put it together originally when we first started as what we're trying to achieve as a joint committee. So, Mark, do you want to add to that?
Speak up.
Yeah, unfortunately, the paper trail at our end goes just one short of going back far enough.
No. But the people online.
But I did say that the joint committee considered the vision early on. And one of the things they also said at the time is they wanted resilience and adaptation to be defined. So I suspect if we dig deep enough, we will find perhaps a ready-made definition of both of those that we can put in the glossary.
Good. Thank you.
Yeah, we can try and dig a bit deeper to maybe the regional council's records are better than the Hastings District Council ones.
Oh, absolutely. Sure. There's no doubt about that. Okay. Good discussion. Thank you very much for that.
So, through the chair, can I just make sure I've got this crystal clear? So when we finalise this for presenting to HPRC, we'll do two things. One is we'll add something on page 6, underneath the vision, to make it clear what resilience means in this context, and we'll also add that to the glossary at the end.
Thank you.
Councillors, happy with that?
Yeah. I don't see anyone disagreeing with it, so that's good. Okay. Well, on that note, we'll come to the recommendation unless there's any other items that we need to discuss. And you find those on page 6. I can read them all out. And for formality, I will do that this time. I'll make an exception. So the recommendation is that the Clifton to Tangoio Coastal Hazards Strategy Joint Committee, first, receives and considers the Clifton to Tangoio Coastal Hazards Strategy recommendations to HBR staff report. Number 2, recommends that Hawke's Bay Regional Council, first, 2.1, receives the proposed Clifton to Tangoio Coastal Hazards Strategy dated July 2024. 2.2, using the proposed funding principles included in the Clifton to Tangoio Coastal Hazards Strategy dated July 2024, refines and finalises a funding model for strategy implementation. So that's quite important. 2.3, prepares a final Clifton to Tangoio Coastal Hazards Strategy for community consultation in accordance with the requirements of the Local Government Act 2002. And 2.4, concludes community consultation in the implementation of the Clifton to Tangoio Coastal Hazards Strategy no later than March 2025. That is 6 months too late, but it's the date we've got, and that's what we deal with. So have I got a mover and a seconder? Elwyn and Hayley, they're from different councils, so that's acceptable, Mr. Price.
Thank you.
All those in favour, wait on, maybe we should have some discussion on it. Would you like to speak to that, either Elwyn or Hayley?
I'm happy to move the recommendation. I think the joint committee's done all it can. It's been a 10-year process. I don't know what else the joint committee can add to it. and it's time to actually move it on and have regional council consult on it.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. I think if I reflect on what I'm most proud of with this work, it's the fact that it has come from the community, and I think there's citizens' assembly and deliberative democracy. Those are all terms that were bandied around like the future of where we're going as local governors, and I think this is a great example of us starting that. I am really proud that it's based off the best science and knowledge that we have to date, acknowledging it's not perfect, but we've got to what we can with a pragmatic amount of knowledge. I think we've landed on something that's doable. We've had some really big discussions that have been hard discussions around how to implement this. And it's been an interesting challenge because we're leading the country in this. And although I'm sure it's been done in other countries, this sort of adaptation is new and it's been hard, and we've been playing cat and mouse with the government around how, like, us leading and them leading the development of this sort of work. So really proud to get to where we are today, and I think it's a great thing to do yourself out of a job. And I think if we were to continue, we could continue to refine this, but we would start to lose our effectiveness and our efficiency. So it's a great moment to be handing the baton to HBRC to continue this work.
Great, thank you. Soon.
Chair, look, I don't want to appear to be nitpicking, but I've got two points to make. The first one is that this has been a long process, and one of the difficulties it's faced is that getting the level of engagement of mana whenua that is desired, and that's still a work in progress. I'd just like to put on record that this is the Clifton to Tangoio coastal hazards strategy, not Tangoio, okay? So that's my first little nitpick. Tangoio, say it everyone, Tangoio, right? So I think we should recognise that. The second point is that recommendation 2.4 recommends that the Regional Council conclude community consultation no later than March 2025, whereas the paper says essentially commence, right? So I'd just like to propose an amendment. Well, anyone can propose it, but the problem is that's simply unachievable. Paper says commence in March, the recommendation is conclude in March. It just ain't going to happen. So I might propose the amendment that 2.4 reads, commences community consultation on the implementation of the Clifton to Tangoio Coastal Hazard Strategy no later than March 2025. Thank you.
I asked the...
Happy with that?
Is that acceptable? Okay. Regarding point 1, you either can pronounce it or you can't. I've got a name that you can't pronounce, and you don't call me that name either. So we'll try the best we can. Tangoio is how I pronounce it, and I can't do any better than that, so that you just got to accept that.
I think we can all improve.
Some words you can't pronounce, like you can't pronounce my name properly. So there you go.
We'll have a debate offline. Thank you.
But I accept what you're saying, but some things can't be changed, okay? That's the way it is. Okay, any other discussion? If not, with the change of 2.4, change from concludes to commence, I wasn't part of that discussion when that happened, so I wasn't aware of the details. Can I please, those in favour say aye.
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 Against? Accepted. Thank you very much. Well done, team. It's really great.
Well done, Steve. No staff. Well done.
When you do yourself out of a job, well, does that include me and Zan as well?
Committee.
Yeah, the committee.
These people.
I get that. Okay. Then we go on to item number 5, which Nigel will have a question on, but I'll pass on to Chris.
Oh, I'll take that one, Chair, if you like. This
Okay.
is the project manager's update.
He normally introduces you and then you go on from there. Yeah, that's normally how it works, but anyway, go for it. I'm easy.
Job, you're not the
Thank-
Muppets.
Thank you, Chair. Righto, so there's not too much to report on for this. The project dashboard hasn't changed substantially. I've still kept the timeframes as a key risk, acknowledging this committee's concerns about delays, so I've kept that as a red for that purpose mostly. In terms of the timeframe for consulting from here, as we discussed already, HPRC is planning on a March consultation process. The thinking at the moment is there'll be an early engagement sort of through February, so that we don't just hit the community with quite a complex piece of work in one go. There's a bit of a warm-up to that. That's been designed as we speak and will be shared and tested with HPRC over the next couple of months. There is a revised timeline which I've attached to the paper, which just shows the process right through to when deliberations are contemplated to take place in April, May next year. So all going to plan, that's what we are thinking will happen. I'll just also note, in terms of central government matters, the Joint Committee has no other live submissions out there right now. That's all kind of done for now. But we did, and thanks to the two deputy chairs and chair, we attended a select committee presentation on the 29th of July, so that week before last, I think it was, to speak to the submission on the climate adaptation inquiry. It was a very brief discussion with ministers. I thought there was a bit of interest, though, in this work that I heard from central government. So they're thinking about some of the things we've grappled with here in Hawke's Bay as they think about their reporting back. We expect it to happen in September when they report back to Parliament, including whether or not they'll be suggesting new legislation to respond to this. So we'll wait with interest as that report comes out. And just note that we all felt that trying to share, 10 years worth of learnings and experience in a 10-minute presentation was quite difficult. So the chair did stress that if there's interest, we're very open to having further discussions with the government should they wish to. I don't think we've heard anything back about that, but the door remains open. And lastly, I'll just round out with the idea that this is, as we say, likely our last meeting. Chris and I are talking about organising a little function to get together, talk about and celebrate the work so far. Perhaps invite former panel members, former Joint Committee members along. So we'll be keen to arrange that over the next month or two when the timing is right. So we'll keep you posted on that.
That'd be great.
Well, I guess further, I'd be keen to hear any thoughts from the Joint Committee on an appropriate way to, celebrate the success. So if there are any good ideas from around the table, I think it would be good to have a quick chat. Otherwise, Simon and I will sort of put something together and do it offline.
I would say fish and chips and a glass of Chardonnay at the beach. Something simple, we could find a winery close by, but I think in today's climate, current climate, economic climate, we actually make it quite simple, but quite fun if we can. So, Yoga Berra, he was a master of making statements, and he was a professional ball player in the States, and he played for many cities around the US. And his wife said, Yogi, when you want to be where would you like to be buried? Because you've played in so many different cities. And he said, surprise me, dear. So surprise us. Yeah, okay. But not when I'm dead, okay? Okay. Can I have a move and a second? Oh, have you got another
question?
Okay,
Yeah.
sorry.
Through the chair, just on that engagement we did with central government, I thought they asked some really brilliant questions, and I think it was Minister Woods in particular was quite interested in where we were getting to with the funding, but we weren't particularly forthcoming with funding at that point because we hadn't decided until today. I feel like they would be interested, and I'm interested in the committee's point of view of whether we could be proactive in sending them where we've landed now.
A link with the powers to be in central government.
Morena. To the extent that we have been able to share some briefing papers or advice that is in the public arena, I've certainly brought those to the attention of MFE and other officials. Now, whether today's events mean that there's even more public material out there in terms of the cost apportionment and thinking, that extra bundle of documentation can certainly be passed through to the officials who are advising ministers and the like, and reporting through to that select committee inquiry too. There's probably some further questions to be had offline around how much more might we proactively share with the officials that have taken a deeper dive into some of that costing and funding stuff.
And that's a possibility in the process that we're in with him? Okay, great. I see Nigel had his hand up.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Chair. That was the area that I was had notes against, and my notes were: have we had any further engagement? That was answered by Simon earlier in his commentary. But my suggestion would be that, as it is an outstanding issue, perhaps we need to mark it as an action that requires follow-up. As a committee, or as the officers that support this committee, perhaps they need an action where they prepare notes that advise whoever takes over this work that there is a piece of work to follow up with central government. And at least, if nothing else, we should circulate a copy of our strategy to the chairman of the Finance and Expenditure Select Committee.
Okay, that's a good suggestion. We can take that on board. That we do so.
Through the chair, I think there's two approaches to this. There's at the staff level, and then there's for us at the political level, and particularly having Catherine as the deputy chair and our local MP. I suppose I was looking for endorsement that an email from us to Catherine or to whoever would be an appropriate thing in the eyes of the committee.
Okay, let's do that. If anyone is against that, then we'll process with that. Very good. Proceed with that.
Just on number 14 there, you've got, after this committee's dissolved, we go to maybe an advisory committee. Will Whenua be asked to sit on that? Because I'm pretty certain now TPW's here, they want to stay here.
On the table. Yeah, definitely. That's part of the recommendations, that at least one member of each PSG would be part of that advisory group. Thank you. Good point. Okay, any other questions, suggestions? Been good so far. Then we'll go on with the recommendation that the Clifton to Tangoio Coastal Hazard Strategy Joint Committee receives and notes the project manager's August 2024 update. Have I got a mover? And a seconder? Haley and Alwyn. You're doing the heavy lifting, you guys, today.
Doing a lot of work.
Okay. Those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Against? Ayes have it. Thank you. Okay, then we go to item number 6. Another question. We won't forget you, Nigel, that you've got a question on. Once again, I go to the men on the left.
Thank you.
Projects update.
Thank you, Chair. So we have this update here, plus I know we had probably at least 2 questions that fit into this category. So really taking the paper as read on those various updates, we have various members of TAG here who can talk to some of those updates if there are some questions. But we might, Chair, get into those questions that have already been asked.
Okay, let's start with them first then. Who's leading off? Nigel?
Yeah, through you, Mr. Chair. My comment were really associated with the same commentary raised earlier around West Shore, and there appears to be an outstanding action required around the increasing the current volumes of beach renourishment. It's alluded to within the commentary, the paragraphs 2 to 5, but I don't see it as a conclusion or an action statement to be taken forward.
Chris?
So there's potentially two matters crossing over, so it'd be good just to explore whether that is in the case. The West Shore Resource Consent renewal here is about the land-based renewal. That consent lapses in 2027, so it's appropriate that we've commenced that activity. So I think that commentary is about that land-based renewal. There is some commentary there about the volumes and how that might support elements of the strategy going forward. So that's actively being worked on. And then there's, I guess, the question around consenting for sand deposition, which may be a question or not, maybe from Councillor Harding, that was your question, which is a different consent that we've previously reported on. And the brief history is probably 4 or 5 years ago, both Napier City Council and the Hawke's Bay Regional Council in their statutory plans at the time allocated around $50,000 each, I believe, to go into consenting a new ocean-based sand disposal area closer to the beach and further south than the existing disposal area. We reported back on that at various committee meetings. It then became very challenging with the amount of science and technical work that was being done, and we had expended the funds that were made available and reported back to this committee that work was being suspended so we could focus on the West Shore consent renewal. So that's, I guess, the high-level summary of that new sand consenting area.
Councillor Price.
Just further to the sand, in 27, when we reapply for resource consents, are we going to reopen the one that we pulled out right on the southern end and by the Rangatira Reef?
So at the moment, there's various things going on. So at the moment, this piece of work is very much based on the land-based placement of material at West Shore, consistent with the approach that's been taken over the last 20-odd years. So that's that. In the strategy, it does talk about sand renourishment, and so it may be when the strategy is when the strategy is implementable through an LTP and funded, it may be then there's consenting activities required for all of the interventions, which may be additional sand renourishment. So at the moment, the sand renourishment consent that was being worked on through TAG effectively, or through this joint committee, has effectively been parked up due to a lack of budget and the huge amount of technical work that would be required to gain that consent and use the resources that we have to actually renew the West Shore consent, which requires renewal in 2027.
So it'd be fair to say it's still an open door to a certain degree?
So it's still an open door, yep, that's correct, but it's currently unfunded.
Okay, thank you.
So this may be an area where an advisory committee would actually come into play, if you can imagine that, you know. So if it's being discussed at the funding for this strategy, and we would, for instance, leave out that sand renourishment, the advisory committee, because you've got Napier Council councillors on that committee, they would actually bring it to the fore. Okay, so I can see merits, just what we've discussed before. You've got a question? You did have.
Yeah, might just be more discussion. I suppose, on one hand, I'm hearing it's expensive. On the other hand, we're hearing from some people in the know in our community that their view is that sand renourishment would build up the nearshore seabed, which would then reduce the need for on-land renourishment and provide a nicer amenity for our people. So I suppose, what is the process that would need to go through to reopen that door? Because at the moment you're saying it's not closed, but it's not really open if it's got no funding.
No, so it's a matter of process. So it has no current funding.
Yeah.
My understanding, it's in the options and the current strategy to go forward for West Shore.
Okay.
Therefore, the process is, this report has now been endorsed. It then goes to the Regional Council. Regional Council will will finalise the strategy and has a bunch of work to do, particularly around the funding. That then goes to consultation, and then it would go into an LTP or LTP amendment to be a funded, defined program. And so if that was the highest priority of the program, then that work would be funded and commence. So when we say it has no funding, it has no funding from either organisation now. It was funded, funding's been exhausted. We're waiting for the process of launching the strategy to prioritise, fund, and ultimately receive feedback from the whole of Hawke's Bay community around priorities, costs, etc., etc.
Okay, thank you.
Chair, look, just reflecting on, and without wanting to put words in the mouth of Mana Hariri, they may well take the view, the holistic view, that they want to look and being consulted on gravel renourishment. They might choose that they should be looking at the bigger picture, which includes potentially the sand. So from my point of view, there's an opportunity, and I mean, if this committee was of mine, to indicate their desire to encourage staff to engage broadly with Mana Hariri about the problem, and then that would create an opportunity for a broader discussion. And also that may provide an opportunity to end up with a more focused set of issues on which science or other, budgetary constraints might be applied to. At the moment, personally, I understand the need for a lot of technical work. I don't know what that technical work is, but I'm just first principles thinking that some of that might be refined, prioritised, eliminated based on discussion with Mana Hariri. So just wanted to test the mood of this committee to say, well, it's worth suggesting to staff, directing them to try and make that happen.
Yep, definitely. And I think there is a case where this actually has played out, where the stormwater lagoon in Tiawana is at risk. And so Hastings District Council actually has taken action and moved on that. So it could have been a move by, say, Napier City Council to actually activate some of this work in the time leading up to now. But of course, now actually they're handing over the strategy. It will be more prudent to do what you have indicated, Zane. So, Nigel, is that, because you're also a Napier City, have you got any views on this?
No, I'm happy with the way the conversations proceeded. So I just felt that there was a more definite action to be noted, but maybe on what Chris's suggestion is this underlying, it's already there, the process. But whether the committee feels there needs to be a more explicit note up to the members.
Okay, good. Zane.
Yeah, Chair, I've just suggested the minutes record the tone of this conversation in the interest of the committee to ensure that the broadest possible, look at the issues around consenting and the options for both sand and gravel.
Yeah, I see nodding around the table, so that's supported. Thank you very much. Welcome, Malcolm.
Yeah, thank you. Apologies for being late. I had another Hawke's Bay Museum Archives meeting that I was chairing.
Good. Okay. Thank you. Okay. So we're on item 6 right now, if you may forget it. Are there any further questions in regards to the projects that are mentioned in here that need explanation? We've got TAG on side, TAG members on side that can. Anything that you need to reiterate?
That's really just testing, Chair. If there's any more questions that we're happy to answer the various TAG members here. If there's no questions, then we can probably close the item.
Just whether we wanted action items or just minutes, but there was a couple of actions to come out of it, wasn't there? The conversations with government.
Yep.
And the
It's minuted?
direction. Yeah. Yep, maybe.
We've amended the action, so we see it as action points. Well, if,
I do.
Zane?
Sorry, I do have one question. It's under the, sorry, I've got to find it again. It's about the river mouth at Tiawanga and how often it's,
Oh, yeah. Yeah,
how
so,
often it's cleared.
Yeah.
And then if we go to the action sheet, it is cleared on demand. My question is, on whose demand? I mean, who makes that decision as to when it's cleared?
yeah, so on that currently, so Hawke's Bay Regional Council monitors 19 rivers across Hawke's Bay, so Marae Tautra is one of those 19. So we have staff consistently monitoring mouth conditions and also receiving information from the community. We have a document which is effectively a guide or a work instruction for how we work with each one of those 19 rivers. So effectively to protect against the flooding of habitable dwellings rather than land itself. So the work instruction goes through the optimal place to put the mouth and some often information about levels, trigger levels and those sorts of things. So it is a responsibility of the Hawke's Bay Regional Council, but we are happy to work with communities to fine-tune some of those triggers. And what we've been attempting to do over the last few years is take out the subjectivity around some of those openings by defining with key people in the community about specific levels that should be avoided, for example, in terms of that backup water. So that's the general philosophy we use.
Yep, so have the key people in that area been identified?
So in that guidance document, and I can't recall specifically for that location, but we have a number of phone numbers and things in those guiding documents for various locations. So I would have to get back to you on the specifics of who the contacts are for Marae Tautra.
So there's the opportunity for that community to come to you and say, these are the key people?
Absolutely, yep.
Yep, okay, thank you.
But they're identified now as key people, isn't it?
So we have so there's 19 rivers in my mind.
Yeah.
Those instructions have various phone numbers and various people, but that's something we can follow up if there's a desire to be more strongly connected.
Yeah, because those communities change over time.
Yeah.
Yeah, people move out, people move in.
Yeah, that always will be a difficulty with having, community involved in this. But the community needs to take responsibility as well. If they have identified one or two people actually that will assist us as a council, that when they actually drop off, that they actually be replaced by someone. So that's an important role for them to undertake as well.
Yeah,
but I do definitely get your point. Okay. No other questions? Yeah, Nigel. Go ahead, Nigel.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Chair. Probably just more a comment. The resolution probably doesn't fully reflect the outstanding work that's left to be completed, and I think it's probably wise to extend the resolution slightly to include or acknowledge the 20 both specific and generic actions that are stated within the strategy.
Just going back to the previous item, is it?
No, it's related to here because it's while we have focused on the West Shore in our discussion here and the river mouth that's mentioned, the actual strategy, this report, which is the current coastal projects update, to conclude this update is really to acknowledge both the actions here in this report and the 20 actions that are stated within the strategy.
So
Chris.
I guess from a process perspective, this report pertains specifically to current coastal projects that may be consistent with or are currently being undertaken outside of the total strategy. So I think it would be useful to separate the two.
Yeah, I'll take your advice on that. Yep.
Yeah. So the purpose of this paper really is to talk about the other activities that are occurring by local councils or just general items of interest to the committee rather than reporting on any execution of strategy actions.
Yeah, okay. Thank you for that clarification. You happy with that, Nigel? Correct with that explanation? Okay, very good. Then we'll leave the the recommendation as is. Any other questions?
Yeah, on Hum 1 and number 12, Action 1, HBRC investigate effective solution for pump station and review the levels of service. That been looked at yet?
So as per the comment there, that will commence in August. We are reviewing post Gabriel 27 schemes. That's one of those schemes, and we've articulated the rough timing there that we would expect to get a draft report by late 2024.
So definitely August 2024. Okay, just making
So
sure.
we're commencing August. Yep. So we're commencing at the end of this month. We've got a bid out on a raft of scheme reviews for submissions from various consultants. So that we're going through that process.
Okay, thank you. Good question. Any other questions, comments? If not, I'll put the recommendation to the committee that the Clifton Tangoio Coastal Hazard Strategy Joint Committee receives the current coastal projects update. Have I got a mover and a seconder? Dan and Noel? All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
No, ayes have it. Thank you very much. And we'll go on to item number 7. Update on the follow-ups from previous meetings. That's you, Chris? Simon?
Yeah, sure, Chair, I can take you through those. There's only 4 items left, and of those, there's only one that's incomplete. So just in brief terms, the first one's been discussed from the Manaia Totoro River mouth. It's been discussed in this meeting. The second one around the March 2012 consultation timing, that reflects in your resolution from today, so it's been captured. The third one is around the rating model. Now that's, that action I believe should be superseded now, given today's outcome, as that work now hands over to HBRC. In fact, we've got a meeting with HBRC's leadership team on Monday to work through that process, so it's underway, but the torch has now been passed. And the last one is the Mātauranga Māori workstream and the record of consultation and engagement. That's underway as well. It's turned out to be quite a large job because we've got 10 years of history to trawl through, but we have pulled out the letters that have been sent, the meetings that have been held, and the notes that we can find, so that's underway, but apologies, it's still a delay, but they'll get that out as soon as we possibly can. So I'd say one item outstanding from that list, Chair.
Okay, excellent. But it's an important one. Okay. You had your
Yeah.
pen up?
Through the chair, just thinking as this is our final paper, wondering where the conversation sits around our governance over the budget that has been allocated to this group. Do we have to put any, procedurally, do we have to do any recommendations or anything around management of the budget? The remainder? Covered?
I mean, just through the chair, so the budget is clicked over new financial year, so the councils all have chipped in for this financial year, third as per usual. We were underspent last year, given the delay in consultation, so that money's been carried forward. So we've got enough to take us through to the end of March to guide it through. TAG will remain in place throughout that time, and this joint committee won't formally disestablish until HBRC adopts the strategy, so it'll remain in place should it be needed to, but for now the budget's in place, it's been allocated and we're tracking towards it.
And I think it's an operational manager, operational topic, so it's not really that we have to deal with. But anyway, just to inform everyone that on the August the 28th, we'll have our first workshop as a Hawke's Bay Regional Council on this strategy. So, yes.
Sorry, through the chair, I just have a question. I think all of this is amazing. Do we have a contingency and potentially don't dissolve and hold in case there is severe revolt from the communities post-consultation when they look at what it looks like and what it may cost? So do we not dissolve and wait until we may need to stand back up and reconsult and reconvene, and then we're ready to go? Because we're assuming the community will say yes.
That's what we're assuming,
Everything.
we're hoping for.
And we're hoping for. But just in the event that maybe they don't, when they look at everything and go, absolutely not, or we haven't found that we have been with mana whenua enough and we need to keep looking, do we not dissolve and be ready to rear up again and work together again in that event?
Well, actually, but that's what Simon said, but he can say it again.
Oh, yeah, so I think in my view, this joint committee goes on standby now.
Yes,
So
okay,
not
cool,
dissolved.
Thank
And
you.
it will remain so until such time as HBRC adopts the strategy after
Cool.
consultation.
Okay, thank you.
I think we can stand up at a moment's notice, but then once the strategy is adopted, we can talk about what it looks like from there, but we're okay for now.
Cool, thank you.
And that could happen, that HBRC councillors decide that when they look into it and the implications that it will bring to take on the strategy, they may decide to go against it. It's still down to the vote at some stage, so nothing is for certain. Good.
Thank you.
Yes?
Sorry, Chair, I just realised something I should have raised before. In the paper, in my project manager's paper, I mentioned that the 28th of August workshop, that this joint committee would be invited to attend, and that came from HBRC's chair, who was looking for a bit of interaction as part of the handover from this joint committee to that council. So I just need to check through the process around how that might happen, but perhaps just signal that I know that the chair from HBRC is interested in that discussion with this committee when the time is right. I'm suggesting that workshop might be the right opportunity, so perhaps just we'll come back to you on that.
Yeah, maybe we ask the chair to send an invite to the joint committee to attend. Okay, no doubt will be a nice lunch provided afterwards.
No doubt.
So that's a reason to come. Okay, that was actually one of the things that we did with the panels. There was always some nice eats and drinks, and it's amazing what inspire people to come to meetings late at night, you know. So that was really good. Okay, any questions on the updates report? If not, I'll move that we accept that. Can I have a move in the second, other than Hayley and Owen? Keith and Hannah. All those in favour say yes.
Yes.
And those against say no. The yeses have it. Good. Oh, well, that was the last official decision that we made. We've got one more item to undertake, and that's to actually close with karakia, and we ask ex-councillor Anne to do that for us on our behalf. Thank you.
I'd just like to say in the spirit of Toitu Te Reo, forgive me, Zane, for my pronunciation.
Of Jareth. Yareth.
Yareth.
Te tau, ki a tātou katoa, te aio, te aroha, ni te māro toa, ki hei mori ora. Get into English for you.
Okay, you know. Thank you very much anyway. Much appreciated.
Thanks, Anne.
Thank you. Well, thanks everyone, and especially those in the gallery for taking your time out to attend. It's been really great, and once again, it gives us the vigour to, especially Zan and myself, to represent you well at the discussions that we're going to undertake. So thank you very much for that. And Zan is nodding.
Always with each council.
And there is some lunch at the back. I only see Vicky.